I hope that the Spirit of Almighty God has touched your hearts as you come into this place and has given you a welcome that goes deeper than words. A welcome that means more than just a sound in your ears, but a feeling in your soul. Because that's the welcome that we hope that you find here always. And that we thank God for granting us. This is our homecoming meeting. And as is often the case with homecoming meetings, we expect to see folks that we don't see every day. Folks that we don't see every service time. Maybe folks that we only see at homecoming. But we look forward to it just the same. And we look forward to seeing each of you. And maybe there are some of you here, maybe this is the first time that you've been here since I've been here. Whatever the case be, we look forward to homecoming. But these homecomings are kind of short-lived things, aren't they? We plan them for a Sunday. We anticipate and we work and we prepare and the Sunday comes and almost before we get our breath good, it goes and homecoming's over. But I want us to think, by God's grace this morning, a little more deeply about homecoming. And by that I'm not talking about your homegoing either. I'm talking about your time here in the Lord's kingdom. Because this is a homecoming. You've been bidden, you've been invited, and you've showed up. Getting there is not quite that simple for us, is it? We can't just decide we're going to go. The Lord has to come for us. So our homegoing is not the same as a homecoming. And I want to invite you to turn for just a few moments to the Gospel according to Luke, 15th chapter, the 11th verse. I'm going to read to you a very special homecoming story. It won't be anything new. Probably won't be anything you haven't heard before. But I trust that the Lord will bless us for a few moments as we consider His Word. Before I begin reading at that 11th verse, just to get a little background, this chapter starts out by saying, "Then drew near unto him all the publicans and sinners for to hear him. And the Pharisees and scribes murmured, saying, This man receiveth sinners and eateth with them." We're sometimes prone, aren't we, to passing judgment on who the sinners are, on who it is that Jesus ought to eat with and who He ought not to eat with. And we manifest that sometimes by our attitude towards others, because Jesus told us plainly, as much as you've done it unto one of these, the least of my little ones, you've done it unto me. And if He would give us the grace to keep that first and foremost in our hearts and minds, I dare say it would make a difference in how we treat those that we encounter on a daily basis. As much as you've done it unto me, you've done it unto the least. As much as you've done it unto the least of these my little ones, you've done it unto me. So the Pharisees and the scribes, the folks that were real religious, they didn't understand why Jesus was partaking with the folks He was partaking with. They were beneath them in their estimation. And notice, even in the writing, it put a difference. There were Pharisees and scribes, there were publicans and sinners, and the Pharisees and scribes didn't consider themselves to be the same class of people as the publicans and sinners. May I gently remind us this morning that the Scripture says that all have sinned and come short of the glory of God. And if all have sinned, then we are all sinners. The 11th verse begins, and he said, being Jesus, a certain man had 2 sons. And the younger of them said to his father, Father, give me the portion of goods that falleth to me. And he divided unto them his living. Now, that's the first thing that I want you to understand here. It doesn't say that he divided unto them their living, because as sons in that day, they didn't have a living outside of the Father's house until the Father divided unto them a portion of his living. So it wasn't something, the Son wasn't saying, give me what I've earned, give me what I'm due, but give unto me the portion that is mine. And the Father was pleased. The Father gave ear to his younger son's request, and he gave to them, because he had an older son too. And he couldn't give portion to the younger son and withhold the portion to the elder son. So he divided unto them his living. The living belonged to the Father. And the living was only the sons, only belonged to either of the sons, because the Father was pleased to impart it unto them. So the next time you begin to get the feeling that God owes you something, you just remember that the living is His, and we only have right to make claim to it as it pleases Him to impart it unto us, because we didn't earn it. We didn't do anything to deserve it. We have it by virtue of the fact that He is pleased to call us sons. And ladies, don't feel left out. That word, the term that was taken from in the Greek is generic. It covers male and female. It covers children, in other words. That being His children, the living that we have to do in this world that honors and glorifies God is His. And He imparts His living unto us. Now, that ought to strike a chord in your soul. I pray that it does. To realize that the God who had the power and the authority to speak the world into existence appointed unto you His living. And not many days after, no, not immediately. And we experience that in our lives sometimes, don't we? The Lord sees fit to bless us, to bestow upon us a measure of understanding, to give us a love for His kingdom, to give us a love for His people, and we have these blessings bestowed upon us and these talents in our lives and these people we share with. And for a while, we're just as content with that as we can be. But then sometimes, like the younger son, we decide maybe we'd just be a little better off to take ours and go elsewhere. Remember, this is about homecoming. But there's not a homecoming if there's not a home leaving. And this young man decided it was time to leave home. He could do it on his own. He could handle it himself. He was ready to face life on his terms. How many of you have ever experienced, or maybe you're experiencing that now, that you think you're ready to face life on your terms? I want to tell you this morning, dear ones, that with all the love and humility that I know how, that life is not going to meet you on your terms. It will drain you of your living, as we're going to see here in just a few minutes. Not many days after, the younger son gathered all together and took his journey into a far country. You ever remember experiencing in your life, for those of us that are older, and a few of you that are younger, have you ever thought, man, I can't wait to be able to get out of this place? If I ever get a chance to leave here, I ain't ever coming back. Just let me go. young man had his pockets full. His father had distributed unto him the portion of his living that he had for that son at that time. And all of a sudden, the world was a great, big, wonderful place, and there was a lot to experience and a lot to do. Have you ever set out on a journey to serve God and somewhere along the way decided, you know, I might be missing something? That maybe this is too restrictive? That maybe this is costing me more than I realize? I can't have fun. That was what this young man was looking for. He was looking for some fun. He didn't think abiding in his father's house was working out too well for him. So he went far away. He didn't just move next door. He didn't stay where he thought Dad could keep an eye on him. He went a long way away. Let me tell you something this morning, child of God, that again ought to bring great joy to your heart. You'll never find the country so far from God that He can't see you. You'll never find the country so far from Him that He doesn't know where you are and what's going on and what you stand in need of. I don't care how long He might let you go and let you wallow in what you think you want. And don't think He won't do that. Don't think He won't do that. Don't think He won't turn you loose to do what you think you want to do until you're so sick of what you think you want to do that you can't stand yourself anymore. He went to a far country and there wasted his substance with riotous living. He was partying hard. He had the world by the tail on a downhill pull. He was confident that everything was going his way. He was having a good time. He was doing his thing. He was doing anything and everything that he thought might give him pleasure, not understanding that he was wasting what he'd been given. Any of you ever wasted your substance? Got your eyes full of wanting? And then when you got it, you couldn't figure out how in the world you was going to let go of it. You didn't know why in the world you wanted it to start with, that all it was doing was taking your time or your money or your energy, draining your heart and your soul, draining your peace and your happiness, and you were stuck with that thing. Didn't seem like there was any escape from it. He wasted his substance with riotous living, and when he had spent all, you ever been at that point in your life when you think, well, things can't get any worse? Guess what? When he had spent all, when he had wasted everything he had, then there was a famine in the land. So not only had he wasted everything he had to start with, but there wasn't anything to be had in the land. He couldn't walk along the road and pull an apple off of an apple tree. There was a famine. There was no food. Oftentimes, again, we get to that point where we've wasted our substance, and we realize we've wasted our substance, and then we look around one day and realize that there's nothing left for us there. There's nothing out there at all. Not only have we wasted everything, but now there's a famine, and we can't even find anything to have pleasure in. We can't find anything to fill that emptiness in us. There's nothing out there that can give us peace. We go to get bed with our souls cramping from the hunger of not finding anything to satisfy that emptiness in us. The world is full today of God's little children looking for something to fill that emptiness in their soul. When he had spent all, there arose a mighty famine in that land. Now, you notice it didn't say there was a famine anywhere else, just in the land where he was. Do you know that I can waste my living, if you will, that I can waste my time and my efforts on frivolous things and not prepare my heart and my mind and my soul to come to God's house and to worship Him, and that I can come in and sit down next to you, and I'm going to find out that there's famine in the land I'm in, and you can sit right beside of me and feast and rejoice and be full to running over in the things of God. You see, there is a famine in that land. There is a famine in the land. There is a famine where you are, where you have wasted your substance, and all of a sudden you realize that you're just empty and that you're hollow, and then to make it worse, you come to understand, wait a minute, I'm the only one in this shape. Well, take heart, you're not the only one. But it feels that way, doesn't it? You sit down with other people and you see joy in their faces. You hear them talk about how good God is. You hear them talk about His mercy and His grace in their lives. And you sit there miserable and you think, well, where's all that for me? I had it. He imparted it to you. Where'd it go? How did I waste so much? And now there's a famine. And he began to be in want. Now that word want in the Bible doesn't mean what it does for us most time today. Because most time when I talk about wanting something, it's not really anything I need. But it's the newest gizmo, and I want it. I want that phone that does all of those things. I want that little box that can sit in my living room and I can have to lock my doors and turn on my lights and tune the radio to the station I want to listen to and turn my TV on, and that I can call up whenever I'm 45 miles from the house and say, hey, turn the faucet off. You know, we want those things. We want that remote control TV. When I was a kid, my dad had a remote control for the TV. It was me. Most of us don't even know if our TVs are capable of changing the channel without the remote control anymore. We want it. We want it bigger. We want it better. We want it fancier. And we want it bad enough that a lot of times we'll do things we ought not do to get it. He began to be in want. He began to be in a situation where the very necessities of his life were lacking. Now, if you've never been to the point where you didn't know where that next meal was coming from, if you've ever been to the point where you didn't know if you could pay that light bill or not, or didn't manage to pay the light bill because it came down to the choice between putting a few groceries on the table or paying the light bill, if you've never experienced what it is to truly lack necessities, then you don't really know what it is to be in want. There are not many of us sitting here today that have truly experienced want. And when I was a kid growing up in the Appalachian Mountains of Southwest Virginia, we didn't eat steak. Matter of fact, I was 16 years old before I ever saw a steak. Had a pork chop once in a while because we grew them. We raised the pigs. Well, we raised cows, but we didn't raise them to eat. We raised them to milk. If we ate it, it came from a garden. Or sometimes from the woods behind the house. Dad got up early in the morning, went out and got a brace of squirrels or some rabbits, and bring them home, and Mom would fry them and make biscuits and gravy. And we were eating good. I don't know that there's too many folks today that would sit down to a plate full of fried rabbit with biscuits and gravy and think that was going to be good. It was good to us, and I tell you what, we didn't want. We weren't hungry. Our needs were satisfied. Now, as I got older, and I realized there was more stuff out there, well, I started wanting. We finally got a TV. And after a few years, got seeing ads for this place called McDonald's. And man, I wanted a McDonald's hamburger. I mean, I went for several years wanting the McDonald's hamburger, but there wasn't one within 100 miles of the house. They finally put one up to Little Town Galax, and I never will forget going to get my first McDonald's hamburger. And I'll never forget how disappointed I was in that. Because you see, I truly never wanted. I had never lacked. I just had desires. But this young man had wasted what his father had bestowed upon him. And there was now famine, so that he had no way of feeding himself, and he began to be in want. So much so that he went and joined himself to a citizen of that country. Now he's already in a far country. He's already a stranger. It's not his homeland. He's wasted everything he had. There's a famine, and he goes and does what? Digs in a little deeper. Digs in a little deeper. Hires himself out to a citizen of that land that he's in, where he's wasted everything he had, and where there's a famine, and where there is want, and he's going to go and tie himself even more deeply to that. A wise man once said, when you find yourself in a hole, the first thing to do is quit digging. That's a hard lesson for us to learn sometimes, isn't it? This young man had not yet learned to quit digging. He went and joined himself to a citizen of that country, and this man sent him, the son, into his fields to feed swine. Now, I don't know how many of you have ever raised pigs, but it's a smelly operation at best. It's a nasty job. But what's more than that, this young man, the Lord speaking to Jews, we assume that he was speaking to them about something that they would understand and something that would have an impact on them. You understand that pork, that swine, was filthy to them. It was not something that was to be eaten. It was not something that was to be handled. It was not something that was to be sacrificed unto God. No self-respecting Jew would ever know, and we compare that again to our religious nature. You see, I'm not making fun of Jews as such, or I'm not pointing the finger at Jews. That's pointing at us. Whenever we become so ensconced in being religious that we forget what it is to be godly. His religious upbringing would have made this one of the most heinous occupations he could have ever thought about having. And it came to the point that he would have delighted in eating what he was feeding the pigs. Now, I don't know how many of you all have ever slaughtered hogs, but I can tell you now, I have never been anywhere close to hungry enough to want to get in the trough with them. I've never wanted to know what slop tasted like. But this young man was so wasted and so distraught and so much in despair of life that he would have gladly partaken of what he was feeding the swine, and it wouldn't fill him, it wouldn't sustain him, he couldn't consume it, it would do him absolutely no good. And no man gave unto him. I hope by God's grace and mercy, if you ever show up at my door hungry, that I'm going to feed you. Thirsty, and I'm going to give you a drink of water. If you need a place to get in and out of the storm, I'm going to open my door. But I still can't give you what's going to fill up that emptiness in your soul. No man could help him. And if you are in that place, or if you've ever been in that place, then you already know the truth of that. That there was nothing that any man could do that brought you any peace, that brought you any consolation, that brought you any satisfaction. No man gave unto him. And when he came to himself, now we're getting ready for homecoming. Now we're getting ready for homecoming. I said, can't have a homecoming if there hadn't been a home leaving. Now we're getting ready for homecoming. And when he came to himself, he said, how many hired servants of my father's have bread enough and to spare, and I perish with hunger? Well, there are servants in my father's house that are better off than I am. There are people that I disregarded most of my life. They were servants. They didn't look for joy. They didn't have expectations. See, that's what a lot of people think about servants. I can tell you, after 49 years in the ministry, and some few beyond that as being a member of the church, that there's never been a place where I've ever found more joy than in being a servant in my Father's house. Than to serve Him, to serve His people, to have the joy of your communion, the joy of your fellowship, to have the joy of seeing His joy reflected in your faces, manifested in your hearts, displayed in your actions. What a wonderful thing it is to be a servant. But you know, there's a lot of people out there that have wasted their substance, that they look at you and think that you've got a miserable life. All I'm telling you is I would be God that everybody was as miserable as I am. How gracious He is. This young man came to himself. And that coming to yourself, I think of something that was said about the story of the wild gathering. You say, well, what's that got to do with anything? Well, it's got a parallel here. It says that when Jesus came on the scene there and made himself known to that man, men were astonished because they came and found him sitting at the feet of Jesus, clothed and in his right mind. He came to himself. You see, until we understand that the place that we're going to find the greatest peace and the greatest joy and the most happiness in life is at the feet of Jesus, we haven't come to ourselves. Until we are brought to the place, until we have lived to the extent that we understand that we can't depend on men, even our own selves, to be able to deliver us from the trials and the tribulations and the worry and the unrest of this world, that doesn't rely with the hands of men. We haven't yet come to our senses. We haven't come to ourselves yet. But this young man came to himself. And with that came a great realization. Those servants in my Father's house that I took so little notice of, they've got it so much better than I do. They don't want. They're not in need. They're not having to fool with filth. They're not going to bed hungry. They have fellowship and communion and companionship in my Father's house, and I'm out out here in this foreign country, wasted all that I've got, joined the people that I don't know anything about, doing something that I despise, and what is wrong with me? Let me go home. I will arise and go to my Father. And I will say unto him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and before thee, and am no more worthy to be called thy son. Make me as one of thy hired servants. Humility is such a beautiful thing. You see, he went from, give me what's mine. I'm your son. Give me what I got coming to me. To, I'm not worthy to be your son. Just let me be your servant. When we come to that place of humility in our lives, then we're about to find joy that we never imagined possible. Whenever we are, by the Holy Spirit of God, convicted to understand that we are by our nature and in ourselves sinners, and that we have sinned against heaven and against our Father, and we are humble to the point and to the extent that we can come to Him and say, I'm not asking to be a son. Just let me be a servant. Let me have a servant's meeting. Let me have a servant's fellowship. Let me have a servant's communion. Lord, Father, I don't have to be a son. I don't have to be. I don't even have to be considered an heir. Just let me come home and serve. And you see, I hope homecoming today means more to you than coming here. Not that we're not glad for you to be here, but if the Lord has planted you here, remember that this is home. If the Lord has planted you here and for whatever reason and for whatever season you went away and you understand today that this is home, then come home. Or if there is somewhere else in your heart that the Spirit of God has said to you today that this is home, then I'm going to tell you we're thankful you're here. We hope you come next year. But in the meantime, go home. Where God has called you. And where He has blessed you. And where He has enabled you to understand that you seek a servant's place. And he arose and came to his father. Now, in all this time, his father never quit being his father. God does not quit being your father because you got out and misbehaved. Jesus does not stop being your elder brother because you acted ugly. He arose and came to his father. You think God doesn't look after you? You think your father doesn't know where you are? Do you think He doesn't know what you stand in need of? But when He was yet a great way off. See, He wasn't even close to home yet. He had just arose and started on his journey back. And while he was yet a great way off, his father saw him. I'm going to tell you something. He didn't just glance up from what he was doing and accidentally spot him. His father has been watching him all along. Your father has been watching you all along. every step of the way, every good thing, every bad thing, everything that gave him praise, and everything that dishonored his name. He knows it, and he's still watching, and he's still looking, and he's still loving. I'm not going to tell you he approves of all of our foolishness. But I learned a long time ago that his disapproving of my foolishness did not cancel his love for his child. While he was yet a great ways off, his father saw him and had compassion and ran and fell on his neck and kissed him. Don't be afraid to go home. Don't be afraid to come home. Your Father is watching you. And even though it might seem to you that you're a great way off, do you know what? That distance is going to close quick. Because this father saw his son coming a great way off, and he ran to meet him. Not to chew him out for all of his foolishness. Not to tell him how bad he'd been. Because by that point his son had learned that lesson. What he hadn't learned yet, but was about to, was the depth of his father's love and compassion for him. You will never truly know the depth of God's love and compassion and mercy for you until you come home. And when you come home, you are going to find that though it might have seemed like you started out a great way off, that distance is going to close quick. And instead of finding condemnation, because you've already suffered that, he'd already suffered his condemnation. What he found when he arose to come to his father in humility was that the father's love and compassion had never waned. It had never changed. It had never become less. And the son said unto him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and in thy sight, and am no more worthy to be called thy son. But the father said to his servant, Bring forth the best robe, and put it on him. And put a ring on his hand, and shoes on his feet. And bring hither the fatted calf, and kill it, and let us eat and be merry. For this my son was dead, and is alive again. He was lost, and is found. And they began to be merry. Now we understand that the son was not graveyard dead. And he hadn't lost his relationship with his father. But he had been dead to the comfort and the joy and the peace of it. And that was all about to change. His father said, Kill the fatted calf. We're going to have steak now. Put my best robe on him. Put my signet ring on him. Cause him to know that he is still my son. And the servants of the Father rejoiced with the Father. The servants of the Father. You want to see a bunch of happy people? Come home. I'm going to tell you now, if you're one of those folks that thinks, well, you know, I'd go, but I don't want to make any big deal out of it. You're going to have to get over that. Well, folks, we love you. When you come home, we're going to make a big deal. That's the nature of our Father, you see. To get the best robe and the ring and the fatted calf and to have a party. A real party. A really good time. For this my son was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found. and they began to be merry. Now, I'm not going to get into that other son, because y'all probably going to be here another 45 minutes. The lesson doesn't stop there, but that speaks to what it means to have homecoming. So as I said, we're thankful that you're here. We appreciate it every year when you come. But my prayer is that the spirit of homecoming will find a lodging place in your heart and an anchor in your soul, and that you would indeed come home to your Father who waits with love and compassion while he watches over you. May God bless you as we pray.